Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carroll Connection. I am your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I did want to take a chance to shout out last week's episode 159 with Abby Hopkins. She's a professional horseback rider, and on that episode, we talked about her journey through some sports, being adventurous as a kid, and then her love for horses and how that kind of stemmed from her childhood and riding, and that built into her career and what she does now. And I think it was a really great episode to show how you can pursue your passion. You could take the chance, as I've said on other episodes, to jump into a career that's more suited for you and really take that risk and try to do it while you can, while you're young, and just enjoy those moments. I think it was a really great example of that. So you could check it out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search The Carroll Connection, or at Jared M. Carroll, and it'll pop up right for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at The Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up. Just give the little 2 cents. Obviously, with the holidays coming up, I pretty much booked the entire rest of November and December. And if you want to come during the holidays, just let me know. I'll probably slide you in at some point and post the episode later. I want to get people while they're back for the holidays, so just let me know and we'll set that up accordingly. So that brings me to today's episode, and this is a big number. This is episode 160, so we're definitely hitting a new milestone today, and I'm bringing back a guest from episode 62, Devynn Slaughter.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Appreciate you coming back on the podcast, my man.
Yeah, I appreciate you shouting me out on Instagram.
Yeah, of course.
Giving me the chance to come back.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like we were talking off podcast, and that episode aired in June of 2021. So almost like 2.5 years later, here we are.
It feels like a fossil now.
It's crazy. Like 2.5 years later, and almost 100 episodes later. Like it's a lot of stuff that's been happening, and obviously a lot of stuff that's been happening in your life as well. And to give a little background on this episode was you had posted a post on Instagram, and the caption was a lot about things that were changing your life and overcoming a lot of kind of anxiety and some depression and some work-life stuff that you were really overcoming. And you were looking towards the future and having to focus more on yourself, focus more on your family, your inner circle. And I really resonated with that. And I wanted to get you on the podcast to kind of talk through some of these things. And we'll do that today on this podcast. But I want to give the chance to kind of catch people up on what's happened since that first appearance on episode 62, because a lot's obviously happened. So I'll let you kind of take the floor with that.
So yeah, that post was, I guess it was sort of like a reflection piece for kind of just the way life has kind of turned out since that episode in 2021. It just seems like, so if you look at the post that I put up before that, it was referencing how my checklist for the summer was just to stay out of trouble, kind of take care of business and keep up with family and friends and stuff like that. Basically, that's kind of what I did the past, 7-8 months. Have really, and obviously having a child. She's now going to be 6 months old.
Congrats on that.
Kaylani. That's my little thing. But it seemed like my motivations, my interests, and my hobbies, everything that was centered around what made me feel good or any intrinsic value, sort of because of just the way things are and to make things work with now having a kid and now having to address life in a different location, even if it's not that far away. It's only another 17 minutes or so. But, it forces you to look at life and be like, only the obligations matter because you only have time. It's not that only the obligations matter, but really there's only 24 hours in a day. So once you get to that level of life where it's like you don't really have the chance to sit down and, bullshit around and be talking about or thinking about things that don't really impact your day, that kind of slapped me in the face a little bit because I was so used to living not necessarily a single life. I've been with many partners now, but in terms of my lifestyle, being able to work late, being able to work when I'd like to, being able to go play basketball or do this or do that when I'd like to, you know what I'm saying? That all changes once you add a child into the mix. And it's not all bad. Don't get me wrong. It's literally the biggest blessing in the world. I like to say that as long as you keep a cool head about it, the only con is that you're exhausted. As long as you're counting your blessings, you should to some level or another enjoy the whole process. I say it wasn't in my plan to have a child this early, but you get down the line, you kind of see that like it's not some like end all be all of your life. It's just you have to look at things a little bit differently. So that post was to kind of address the fact that I'm moving into this new type of person that I mean before I never really spent too much time clubbing or overdoing it with social activities and stuff like that. But really kind of, and this goes back to the conversation that we just had off camera was getting back to the basics, not not hanging around in sketchy scenarios, whether it be sketchy for, my scenario and putting me in danger, because now I have my family to think about, but also to put like my job or my legacy in danger and stuff like that. Like that all really, really, really matters now because my life is not for me. My life is for this child that can't advance with life unless we're there to provide for her and care for her when she needs. So, um, I guess to wrap that whole thing up into one sentence, I guess that post was just about, as you get older, you kind of figure out what life's about, figure out what's really real, what's just like, urban legend or what's blown up on social media or what concepts are saturated through the various amounts of stimuli we see throughout the day. At the end of the day, you got to be cool with, getting back to the basics. If you really want to have a life where you can pursue and have the room to think about certain things, you got to master the basics, and that's kind of what we covered earlier.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just watch out with touching.
I'm
The
sorry.
mic. Yeah, you're good. I didn't want to interrupt that, but the aspect of just creating meaning that we talked about off the podcast with life in general, I think a lot of us do struggle on the day to days with our lives because when you graduate college, no one really prepares you for what's after that. You kind of get thrown into just real life adulthood and you get thrown in there with some debt. So life gets a little bit more challenging. They don't teach you that. But no one gets you ready for the day to days. Like when you're sitting in traffic, going to work, sitting in traffic, coming home from work, the long days at the office, like it can be very mentally draining. Like obviously there's jobs where it's a little bit more physically draining when you're talking about like on hands, like plumbing or electrician or construction. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
right,
those
right.
jobs are going to be very physically draining as well as mentally draining. But for my point of reference is talking about these office type of jobs where you went to college, you got this degree, you get this what's supposed to be this nice job, you get a nice little cozy salary or whatever it is, you get the benefits, like okay, like I think I could manage this, like this ain't so bad. And as you move through that a little bit, life starts to hit you in the face really fast. And when I found myself in this position, I was in Texas, and when I moved away and was doing my work out there, and that's when real life kind of hit me. I'm like, I'm in a new place with new friends. I'm supposed to be living this great life, and I really wasn't. I was just miserable. I didn't have what I thought was any meaning to what I was doing. I was just doing things to do things, and kind of building off what you're saying. It's great when you're young almost. It's nice to experience that, but at a certain point, especially in your case where you're talking about you're bringing a child into this world, things have to have a little bit more meaning to them. That you can't just be doing things just to be doing things anymore. Like
Right,
because it's
right.
not about just you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's about you and your family.
Right.
And you can't just be doing stupid shit just to do stupid shit because you want to do stupid shit. Like
Yeah, right.
it's a selfish thing and you could indulge in that when you're younger, but as you grow up and especially in your case, like you gotta kind of have to step up to the plate a little bit. And that
Yeah.
stuff that we talked off the podcast about was like kind of coming into this realization that life is going to be different and
Hmm.
you have to kind of do the thing. And it's kind of like applying that like pressure to your own life is like I want to be better not just for myself, but for my family, for my child. Like and I think that's really admirable for you to have this mindset to be thinking about these things because some people don't and it's crazy that they don't, but it seems like there's been a lot of change around in your life and we'll dive into that a little bit. But a lot of that change has motivated you in a positive way, which I think is really good.
Hmm.
Um, building off of that, like uh, episode 62, you're kind of getting towards like the end of college. You're getting ready to go into like the real life, like kind of what happens after that period after that episode when you finish up school and get into like real life. Like what happened after that?
So I actually never finished up school. I
Mm,
still, I because, you know, whether it be a lack of clarity, motivation. I could list all the excuses, but I my blessing where the grace period of when would be the ideal time to graduate college, I dragged that on. You know what I'm saying? And now I'm really seeing the effects of that because, like you're saying, with the workforce and everybody, the economy sort of going in a certain direction, you need a degree more than ever. Like you, in some way, shape, or form, if you want certainty in your life, I get it if you're dual income, no kids or something like that. You like, I want fulfillment, I want passion in my job, so the money doesn't exactly matter. But like in my scenario, being young right now, like I need something consistent and I need something that is going to be the same thing week to week that I can base my life off of. So I guess like in a way, it's sort of like you have to win that battle of yourself and be like, okay, it gets stressful because it's not as fulfilling or it's not as gratifying. You start going through these periods of like where you're like, dude, like can I really do this? You start overthinking it because you get under these new stresses that you didn't have before. So to be able to kind of like, if I were to speak up on that, I would just say that get ready because not all kids come into this world on purpose. And when it does happen, like you'll see that all like the little cycles and all the little things that you were thinking about before, it really takes a backseat.
I think what you're saying too is real. I think a lot of people are going through these type of things and
Hmm.
having these experiences in their life, especially with the way that the economy has been, with the way has the job market has been. It's a very difficult time, and with inflation the way it is, it's hard to afford things in general.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the talk that I've had in the podcast is always talking about passions and pursuing things, and I think this is more of a real conversation where it's like, yeah, you still have those aspirations, you still have those things that you want to pursue on the backside, but you also have the real aspect of just real life where you need to make money to support your family, and
Yeah.
the aspect of having consistent like income and like money flow coming in, like you need that to support a child. Like it's just like it's real, and I think that conversation gets overlooked in a lot of this stuff is people don't think about people maybe in your position who have a child, who are young, who want to provide the best life for them and are struggling because the economy, like things are tough. And I think you're kind of coming into this place where you're trying to really figure out yourself at the same time.
Hmm.
And that's a really difficult thing. I mean, your mid 20s, like it's a time where it's a lot of self-discovery at the same time.
Exactly.
You're really growing up with your child now. Like and
Yeah,
you're going to
in a
really
way, yeah.
experience that.
You're right. You're right. And like you're saying, I like that term self discovery because that's something that I'm even thinking about right now. And I'm like, wow, he's right. I remember at the time that we had that first episode with me on. I remember I was sort of thinking about myself. I was thinking about the growth. I was thinking about my mind was going so far in me direction. And then now we get to this point where, I've gone through the motions and, you know, we bring a child in the world and I have to move some things around and make things work. My girlfriend, same thing. It's just like, I don't know, dude. It's like life literally like rewires your brain and you have to be able to kind of like, or you have to rewire to what life is throwing at you and you have to be able to function well with that. Because if not, then you're going to notice that you're going to open up all new cans of worms. And I guess what I'm saying is when you do end up getting to parenthood, then the things that you do, it turns, my dad said it this way, it turns checkers into chess. Every single move counts. And you need to be like 2 or 3 moves ahead at all times or to the best of your ability. Because in today's world, dude, gas prices are crazy. Everybody's hiring. That's not the issue, but it's no longer you can't just show up and get a job and be perfectly set on like a full-time job. You don't just do that anymore. A lot of the connection was actually removed from the whole application process in general too, because a lot of the jobs that I did hold down for a very long time and proved to be good for my life, it was I just walked in and I talked to the manager. And you can't do that anymore. Like I literally spent I showed up to literally 10, 15 places. I sent out 50 something applications. You know how many I heard back from? Literally zero. Because all the people that I showed up to, they were like, "Oh yeah, go apply online and blah blah blah," And you can apply online all you want. You can show up, you can call, but there's no testament to if you're applying to a new business, like you're still just an applicant and you don't have that life connected to you. And some employers, I think, are better at acknowledging that than others. I've had some managers, make a fair amount of consideration for my life scenario in deciding whether to hire me or not. And then I've had other people where like I will literally say like, oh yeah, like my daughter was just born, and they'll just be like, oh, like that's cool, and then move on with the process. And I'm like, okay, well, that's like kind of a big deal, and that's a big piece of considering whether this is going to be a good fit for me or not. Is like I'm working here for that child and me at the same time. Like I'm trying to support a family here. So it's like to see that connection missing, it's like either A, that manager might not have kids and might not understand, or B, they're just in a position where they don't have to concern themselves with that. And that's the reality of the way the workforce is.
Yeah, it's taken a lot of like the personal connection that you're referencing out of it with technology. And you would think that you have someone in your face here wanting and looking for a job versus people who just see a resume, send the application, see the resume, send an application. Like,
Right. And
it, yeah,
even like if you apply on Indeed, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
you're good.
If you apply on Indeed, it makes the whole application process like really quick. Like, Indeed, Glassdoor, whatever, you make like your preset resume and you start fire and you just type up the cover letter. It's different every time. Okay, so like that's an advantage for me, you would think, right? But it does trickle down because when you send out 50 applications, that all those companies, they know that they're on Indeed. They know that they're going to get mass amounts of applications from Indeed. So it's not the same as, okay, I wrote out an application, I showed up to the manager and he said, I'm going to get back to you by that date. It's just like, here's a list. Okay, what are we hiring for Thursday, Friday? They have a whole pool of applicants that could probably fit that little niche position. And that's the problem with you see now hiring, but it's like you're hiring for specific shifts. You're not exactly offering somebody a living or offering somebody a solid, good full-time spot throughout the week. And I felt that I found a lot of struggle finding a full-time spot that's within a certain distance that will offer me a good amount of hours and at the right time. It's just like that perfect job opportunity is not available like that. So in order to make changes, it's like you have to almost remove that connection. Like you have to go maybe take a job that sucks, take a job that breaks you down. And, not to be like, oh, like men's mental health is like under, how do I say, like, underrepresented or anything like that. But, when you're going through this, when you see that, I really need to provide for my family, and you're going through this process of I'm showing up to this job and it sucks and I'm like tearing up on the ride home because you're just so damn frustrated, whether it be one reason or another, because of the way life is in this economy, it doesn't matter. Like you need to, you have to carry through with that. And so you do that a couple of times, it does break you down when you're just doing it for the money. You're not doing it for the fulfillment or anything. Like that kind of eats at you a little bit. And to see that sort of that downgrade of connection from my recent jobs or my previous jobs, it's like, okay, this is what the real world is like. And so like if people got a clear view of what the real world is like and what a real job like makes you feel, not to say that not to say that any jobs are like real or fake or anything like that, but I guess once you get a full-time job, like you'll see that you probably took the whole working with my friends back home while I was in high school for granted, or, it's just, you gotta be picky choosy with how you move your pieces, it's just like you're putting yourself out there and you just need to be there for the money and that's it. Get there, get your work done and go home.
Yeah, I think you're hitting a really powerful point here, talking about being the provider and having to kind of just suck it up, and that's just kind of like the role of a father. Usually, is to kind of, you have to do what you have to do to provide, and at the end of the day, like you could be upset, you could be frustrated, and all those things. It's not going to matter because
It literally doesn't.
Because like, yeah. I hate saying it, but like I've come into that space too where it's, you do have to acknowledge those feelings, obviously. You do have to process them on some level because stored energy is stored energy and it doesn't go anywhere until you release
100%, it. 100%, I get you there.
So like that is like an important thing, but and this is where I fell off a little bit for a long time. I was raised on kind of just the get up and do it type mindset.
Yeah.
And then you push back as you grow up. You're like, nah, I'm going to express myself. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I want to like live and appreciate and have these emotions. But at the end of the day, you break it all down. Those are good, but you still have to just do. And I had made an episode actually of kind of talking about like not forcing things. Like you shouldn't just force things to force things. And I made a caveat to that where it's like only you know when you have to force the thing though. Like there is a piece that's like you have to be self-aware enough to understand that sometimes in certain scenarios, like it doesn't really matter what you feel. You just got to do the damn thing. Like you
Yeah.
can't just keep pushing it off. Like it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Like at a certain point, you just got to do it. And we were talking about this kind of off podcast too. And you could go in so many different directions with this is you might, and well, I'll use the example that I use off air where we were talking about New Year's resolutions and I'm talking about how I just don't like them. And it's like always like, if you want to do something, why start then? Like you shouldn't just wait for a certain date to start something. You should just do it now because you know you should. And it's teaching you this level of discipline, this level of consistency that you're kind of preaching about is like, I need this in my life. I want this in my life. And I think that's a valuable thing to want to add to your life. Cause a lot of people will be like, nah, I want to do things when I want to do things. Like, well, one, that's kind of selfish to want that. And you could want that, but understanding there are scenarios where you need to apply yourself. You need to like be there. You need to step up and you need to sometimes put your feelings to the side in
Yeah.
order for the benefit, I can't think of the word, not benefit, betterment of not only you, but your family.
Right.
And I think you're kind of stepping into this position now where you're looking at the chessboard, like you mentioned. I think that was a great analogy. And you're looking at how can I position myself to not be in this scenario 1, 2, 3, 4 years down the line? How can I put
Exactly.
myself in a position where I'm going to potentially succeed way more than regress? Like, and also where I could possibly get some personal fulfillment from this role. I don't want to just step into somewhere where I'm going to hate it and have to redo this process in another like 6 months to a year. Like, you don't want to necessarily do that.
Mhm.
So it's kind of looking at the chessboard, but also understanding that I do have to do, like I have to move, I have to make something happen at the same time. So I definitely empathize with your position and what you're talking about here is um, being in a position where you want to wait a little bit to find the right thing, but you also have to just do. And I think that's like a powerful message to kind of give to people is people in your scenario, this is real life. This is stuff that's happening all across the United States and people are in the scenario where they just got to make shit happen. And I think that's like really valuable. And I want to build on top of this topic, talking about the aspect of like the job force, the market, and how you've kind of gone through that wave of riding the different jobs and trying to find what works for you. And I'm kind of interested to kind of hear your perspective. We talked obviously off podcast about it, but kind of your mindset around like going from the different jobs and um, kind of struggling through that mental aspect of just like, damn, is this like real life? Like, talk to me a little bit of that, like kind of like that post like episode where you're trying to in this marketplace, trying to figure out who you are and figuring out what works for you. I know we talked about the commute and stuff like that and things of that nature, but I'll let you kind of dive in a little bit of kind of like your mindset with the way things are in this job market.
So it's tough because given the fact that we have online templates like Indeed, Glassdoor, we have abilities to call businesses, look up their number and call, hey, are you hiring, stuff like that. As I said earlier, yeah, that's a great thing, but it then allows employers to then instead of having to cater to one person's needs and try to give everybody the best hours to their scenario, they now have the ability to pick and choose who can fit in certain little spots throughout the week. And you could have 80 employees working a store that's the size of smaller than a shed. But what I'm saying. But if they rotate everybody in and out, then they have the whole thing covered. I guess that's the kind of like the analogy that I'm trying to make is like there's oftentimes almost like too many chefs in the kitchen at these places, and they're only hiring for what they need. They're not saying we're hiring because we're offering you a career. They're really saying we're hiring because, well, we could use somebody for that one little gap on the schedule. And for the companies that are hiring full time, nights, holidays, and weekends. So it's like, all right, I need, I'm looking at each end of the scale here. Like it's either like I'm gonna not get enough hours, or I'm not gonna be able to come home to see my daughter in some of these days where I'm like, I really want to be there. Like this is my first time doing this. I want to make sure my daughter knows that I'm there and she's taken care of, she's loved, and that I'm available. That's the biggest thing, is that you got to be available for your kids.
Yeah, and I want to dive into this too some more. I think this is a really great chance for me to kind of pick your brain too. Obviously, this is very fresh. This is new. It's a whole new experience, and I kind of I'm referencing this of when I first um my brother had his daughter, and it was the my niece. It was my first time being an uncle, and like I forget who around me mentioned this, but they talked about it's a new experience. You're going to experience new emotions,
Yeah.
emotions that you've never experienced before. So talk to me about that, like kind of a little bit of like finding out that you're going to have a kid. What are you
Ooh,
kind of going through mentally? And
yeah.
obviously, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. But like I can imagine that, like based on what you're saying, like you said, a little bit unexpected, but still like probably a little bit like once the decision is like, yeah, like I'm gonna have a daughter, like it probably sets in a little bit of an excitement too aspect. So kind of
Mhm.
walk me through the emotions of like finding out and then ultimately becoming a dad early on.
So I guess I'm assuming it's different for everybody personally. It depends on where you're at in life, at when you find out and stuff like that. I had a harsh reaction right away. I Because like you're saying, like it's a new emotion. Automatically, I was told by so many people, wait till you're married, wait till you're out of school, wait till you're this, wait till you're that. So when I heard, hey Dev, I'm pregnant, all that like panic came like rushing to me, and I just sat there like almost like frozen, like dysfunctional for like a couple minutes, and I had like no idea how to process that emotion. It's like I didn't understand whether to be excited or scared or nervous. I just felt it all at once. So that was that, like on finding out, what I'm saying? So me and my girlfriend went and talked to both of our sides of the family, and they were like, we're here to support everything, which is a massive blessing, because if we didn't have help, dude, I have no idea how I would have made this work. Um, Family is key, support is key. Um, and I think that during the process of 1, 2, or 3 months into my girlfriend being pregnant, you do get excited because you start, all of a sudden things start changing. Like even like the small things you were worrying about before, some of it just like literally falls off, and you start, like I had a lot of things I was anxious about, and I had like nervous ticks about certain things that I can't even think about right now, because I can't even like conceptualize them. My mind's more so focused on you know work, family, a little bit of friends and experiences sprinkled in here and there, and that was also something that was really harsh on me. I made it harsh on myself, was not accepting the fact that, like you were saying earlier, if you want to get in the habit of doing something, if I want to be available, I want to be a good parent, um, I'm not going to be able to go play basketball here, there, and 3, 4 times a week. And even a few months into my girlfriend being pregnant, I was still sort of trying to cling on to that. I was training like every day for no reason, just to cope with just this, like, oh my god, I have this crazy thing coming my way and all that. Um, but all in all, it's the rite of passage. Not everybody can have kids, so if you can carry your bloodline on, you know, I'm in favor of having a daughter. I wasn't before, but I had my reasons. I wanted a son, but listen, my daughter, I wouldn't trade her for the world. She is an absolute blessing to me, and now that she is here, a couple months into forging me into being a good father by having to now, I have to be there too. Like when her diaper smells, like dude, you got to change it. You know what I'm saying? When she's crying, like you got to get to the baby. When you're looking in the cabinet and you're like, okay, we don't have the bottles like set and ready to go, and we know that she's gonna have to get sent off to daycare in the morning. It's like you got to get your ass up in the middle of the night or do it, or early in the morning and do it, because if not, then you're gonna be behind. And like when little things like that happen, you got to compensate, and then that little bit of lost time gets put here. And you are, like I said earlier, you don't. It's not like when you were in the younger years and you have a bunch of time to just give up. Giving up, 20, 30 minutes at a time is detrimental in some things functioning well in the week. So and right down to if I don't hit Stop and Shop, like we have a packed week, right? So like let's say we didn't have time to hit Stop and Shop. Okay, well now we have to buy meals for the next 2 3 days until we go back to Stop and Shop, and that impacts you.
Yeah, and I think one, having a daughter is going to change your life. 100%.
Absolutely.
Everyone always says it.
Uh-huh.
I think I think a lot of guys probably have that similar experience to what you're referencing, and it's going to make you a better man ultimately.
100%.
And it just based on our conversation now and the conversation then, I could see the actual growth though. It's forced you, whether you wanted to or not, it has forced you to become more of a man. And because it's real life, it's real life. We've talked about throughout this episode is stepping up, and you've
Hmm.
kind of had to step up to the plate. And I love the fact that you had that mind shift between the anxiety about having a kid at a young age to like, I'm kind of excited about this. I'm gonna be a dad. Like I get
Yeah,
to like carry on the bloodline, like you're saying, because I do think about stuff like that as well. Like
yeah,
the chance to do that is something that I would love. I look
right.
forward to that, and I think. Like I agree with the fact that I think people should have kids. I'm definitely on that boat. I'm not on the boat of like overpopulation. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but
Yeah,
I'm not on that boat.
because there's nothing
Uh,
you can really do about. I mean, I guess you can adopt, you can do this, that, foster, but there's like, what are you gonna do about the billions of people that are still gonna reproduce? There's nothing you can really do about
Yeah,
that.
you
So
can't really control people in
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, there's certain countries that try, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. But I'm just saying the fact of like the blessing of bringing a child into this world, and I love the fact that you also brought up, you're going to need support. Family support is so
Yeah,
crucial in raising children, and I was looking at this quote recently for this project that I'm working on that I kind of referenced. I'm not going to talk about too much on the podcast, but I referenced the fact that some people don't have that privilege of having their family, but
right.
also understanding that it takes a village to raise children. Like if you're gonna bring children in this world, or you're gonna have children in this world, you need a support system. You need people that are gonna rally
Yeah,
behind you and help you when you need it. Especially when you're a little bit younger too. You're gonna need that support to be able to look up to your parents and have them as like be like, all right, you should do this, you should look at this, you should do this. Like game changer. I can
yeah,
only imagine the amount of advice and guidance that your parents have given you to allow you to be a better father versus
yeah.
not having them. I could imagine like just all the different things that go into to raising a child and preparing to have a child. So I could imagine that was probably a very unique experience. I kind of want to pick a little bit, if you're okay with it, into the actual birth, like the emotions of actually like
Oh
being able to
man.
like to hold your daughter after everything was said and done. Like because it's all real then. Like, what were
Hmm.
some of the emotions that you were feeling in those moments?
So so going into it, I thought I was gonna be like what you see like in the movies, like a nervous wreck, like oh my god, blah blah, blah. Like I'm like hands shaking and all that. I really I was quite the opposite because to be honest, like not to like put an evil connotation on it, but the whole birthing process, if you're really there and you're there for your partner, it's tough to watch, man. Like you want to you almost start to get emotional for your partner because you see them going through all that, and it's all real. It's life. This is how the birthing process happens. But I was there for my girlfriend, holding her hand, kind of just being in her face, just stay looking at me. It's a very overwhelming experience. Um luckily our by the grace of God, our birth went very, very well, very quickly. But there was literally, I mean, there was somebody who, I'm not gonna name drop. There was somebody that we know that had a baby down the hall a few days later, and their labor carried into like 20 something hours or something. We were only like pushing 5 or 6, and we were just like, I was like, thank God, because you really do feel bad. Like you want to feel like your wife's pain. You know what I'm saying? When she's going through all that, and there's nothing you can do. That sucks. And you get these emotions like I caused this. You know what I'm saying? You get all the accountability thoughts, the over accountability, over analyzation of all that. Um, but once it's over, um, and once once the baby was here, it it's like you finally jumped into cold water, and you're feeling what that cold water feels like. Like you're holding your daughter and you're like, oh my God, like this is a new experience. You're like, oh, don't drop her. Like you're going through all these paranoid thoughts because like you want to be so perfect. Like you want to be so on top of that. And you also learn along the way. A couple nights in the hospital. They make you stay 2 or 3 days after to make sure everything's going smoothly and everything. Um, that first wake up, my dad warned me about that. I was not ready for that first wake up cry, man. I woke up like I got hit with a freaking like stun grenade, man. I was just like, oh my god, what do I do? What do I do? My girlfriend's like, grab the bottle, like, let's go through this process, and then a few months of that, now it's like I'm a pro. The moment I hear it cry, spring up, make that bottle, give her that back to sleep, stuff like that doesn't seem so like that seemed like such like a alienated process to me. Like it seems such a like no, that's the wrong word. It seemed like such a foreign process to me to be like I'm gonna be caring for this child. This child is actually me, dude. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. I think it changes a lot about life once
It
it
gives
happens.
life way more meaning. Like, and as we were talking a lot about meaning, that's like the ultimate meaning. It's the ultimate sacrifice is providing for it's essentially a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like the coolest thing is when we take that step back from our day-to-day life and to just appreciate things that are going on and to appreciate that you and your girlfriend and your daughter are happy and healthy and working through things and progressing in life. That's the biggest blessing you could ask for at the end of the day, that you guys have each other and things are positive and you're moving into a direction where life is going to get easier as you go through. The next several years will probably be tough, but like
Right, right,
it's getting through those, and you'll eventually be able to get back to the basketball stuff. You'll eventually be able to get back to these things and do them the way that you want to do them.
Mhm.
But being selfless right now is so applaudable. It's to see that ability of you to like turn off that switch where it's like you went through of like, damn, I have to give up this stuff in my life. I was really looking forward to these things
And
to be
I
like,
overthought that for a while. I really like that was weird. That was like a long term like almost I was doing it to myself. I wasn't sitting and like kind of like writing out my feelings and figuring it out. I was just kind of I was such like in like a haze with all the thoughts, all the advice, all the notifications, all the dude. It's a lot. It really is a lot. And to finally face that, like, listen, you're gonna be able to get back to that. And like my girlfriend tried telling me this a few times. But once I really was taking it overboard for a little bit. Um, she's like, you'll be able to get back to playing basketball. You'll be able to get back to whatever life you can make work that you like to carve out. But for right now, this is what we have to do. And so, in a way, I was hit sideways by that because I'm like, I'm supposed to be the guy that's like, what I'm saying? This is what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to provide. This is the plan, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, when you get into parenthood, you see that those conversations, there's a lot more moving pieces than you really think. And conversations, experiences, everything gets kind of sprinkled with some new ideas and some new concepts and new things to think about.
what kind of things did you do to manage some of the stress, to manage some of the anxiety that came with this and has come with being a father? And like, because I know a lot of that post, you talked about shrinking the circle and talked about working through your depression,
Yeah.
anxiety. What were some of the things that were helpful during this time period?
Number one is understanding that social media now has an entirely new look to me because like when you're young, you're sitting there thinking that's like almost like TV for our generation. You know what I'm saying? Like and when you're young, that's what provides you all like you be checking in with your friends, you're checking in on trends, you're keeping up to date with what everybody's doing. So I had to cut that off because, you know, likes and followers do not convert to dollars or progress. So that right there, I was like, I have to stop. I didn't have to stop anything, but I kind of made the choice to just not be so connected on Snapchat, not be so available to people. Like, you have my number, you can call me if there really is a problem, or you need me or whatever. But that was something that I had to do. I had to take out those distractions. I had to lock in one direction, and in order to cut down on some of the excess amounts of time and interaction that really wouldn't happen unless I had a phone in my hand. I cut down on that, and then I started only hitting up the people that I felt were checking back in with me, and that's highly, highly, highly underrated in figuring out who really takes your connection for what it is, and not just like that's a human that's just like he's got his thing and blah blah blah. Oh yeah, that's Dev, whatever. the whole basis of this podcast is connection. And I think that if you get back to the basics and you connect with the people that really feed into your life, you'll start realizing like, wow, I didn't have so many friends. Like I didn't have so many like people on my side. Like you think you have all this support, and then when the stuff really goes down, well, who is going to answer on the first ring? Who is going to answer on the first ring and then call you tomorrow to make sure that conversation went well, or to make sure you're feeling all right, stuff like that. I'm perfectly fine with having a small circle because in my circle, those people make sure I'm good. I make sure they're good. You know what I'm saying? We may not talk every day, some of the people, but when we do, it's on a genuine basis. It's not, we're just hanging out to pass time. And I think if you start taking you start taking your social circle a little more seriously, you start being a little more exclusive. That's not you being an asshole. It's not you being antisocial, but that's you trying to cut down on some of the interaction and experiences that you know aren't going to stick with you. Like, why are you going to sit there? Why are you going to go back and forth with somebody on social media if you know that you're not going to, for me personally, I'm not going to get a sale from them in graphic design. But if we're talking about design, we're talking about all types of things. If we don't actually hang out, then it's like, okay, why you hit me up? That's a very small, very niche example.
No, I
But
think
like,
that's really good, and I think to build off that, I think everyone needs to experience that. And some of the research that I've been doing on my project, um, it came up of I forget which researcher did this study, but on average, people can have about 150 to 200 like acquaintances, but when you break it down to bare bones, like it's like five or fewer really personal
literally, yeah,
relationships, and we're really more wired for that. And my favorite thing, or kind of like favorite quote that I've kind of like, I don't know if anyone said this or it just kind of really stuck with me, but with the illusion of social media, we feel more connected than ever before, but we're actually the most disconnected society that's ever existed.
100%. You know what? That feeling, that realization of it, that has hit for me recently because I feel that every time I open Instagram, I'm just staring at a phone. Like all of a sudden, like it kind of just hits you, and you're like, my day wouldn't have changed if like I didn't open social media. You know what I'm saying? It's not like this is doing anything really for me. I don't have a YouTube channel that's monetized, or I don't have like anything like that yet. I have my graphic design business, but that's like I can really supplement that with the word of mouth. Um, I just think that it's social media is the reason why people are so quick to not have the understanding conversations and not connect with you on an emotional level and be able to resolve issues. You got people cheating, you got people disloyal, you got people not showing up for their family or their friends or their kids and stuff like that. I'm lucky enough where I found a partner that connects with me enough to be able to, I don't have to worry about, okay, like what's she doing? You know what I'm saying? I don't have to worry about the same things that a lot of people genuinely have to worry about because like they're so used to having a partner that's willing to push those boundaries and not talk about it because like that's what's the normal on social media. That's what's cool. That's what's funny. That's what gets the followers.
I agree. I'm in the same situation. I'm in a very loving and appreciating relationship now, and I don't remember if I mentioned too much on our last episode of like the struggles that I was having with dating at that point, but over the past like year, it's been the most positive, the most healthiest relationship I've ever been in, and I feel the best I've ever felt because I have a partner that believes in me, that
Yeah, that's
supports
great,
me,
bro.
and
Yeah,
to reciprocate that, and it builds off what you're saying is I know who she is. I know her character. I know she's not going to do some slimy shit like that. And you say that, and people are like, "Oh, well, you know, everyone's the same. They're gonna do it." Like
yeah, that's
that's
not
not.
true.
Yeah,
That's not entirely true. I think that everybody has a tendency to believe what they want to believe. You know what I'm saying?
you
So like,
manifest it too. Like if you,
that's what I'm saying.
it's
Like you
the
got to
stuff
work
you.
on things.
It's if you think about stuff constantly, that's what's gonna constantly come into your life. And I try to tell this to people, and I know it's hard to like understand
It's hard to
sometimes.
get across with the
Yeah,
same, like it's hard to say it from this angle because like mentally like everybody's on all kinds of different levels and different platforms at different starting and finishing points. Some people's minds just don't end. You know what I'm saying? So they think about things like me. I have a tough time turning my brain off at night. I want to get up, I want to do chores, or I want to do anything besides just get in bed and go to sleep and get ready for the next day. And I don't know. I think if with connection, that's a way of putting that, being able to put that to the side and just be like, you know what? I have stress in life. I got this going on. This is me as a person. How does this stack up to you as a person? I think that our generation needs to do a better job of asking those questions to each other. Like, hey, like, where do you see our relationship in a few years? I can't even think of a single relationship that they've actually like asked me that in the talking phase. Like, where do you see our relationship going? What are some of your boundaries? What are some of your emotional ticks that I should look out for? What are some boundaries you would like me to that you don't necessarily have a justification for, but you just kind of would like me to respect? Like, what are some things that we need to talk about now to be able to get to that point that when it's a few years down the line, we're talking about, okay, let's get married or have kids, whatever the case is, that you guys are in good shape to do that. Because unresolved issues lead to breakups, divorce, fights, all these types of stuff.
110%. And that was always like one of my initial things that honestly would end a lot of stuff before it ever happened was just being upfront is like, I want the long-term relationship. I want the long-term possibility for family and kids and marriage and all that. Like, I want these things. And a lot of people, when you are very upfront about it,
It's scary.
yeah,
To them.
they're like,
Yeah.
whoa, like, slow down. I don't even know. It's like, well, if you're not thinking, because like, you got to be a little forward thinking with this type of stuff is because
You do.
like, you don't want to waste their time. You don't want to waste your time. You got to be more purposeful. You got to be more meaningful with your relationships. And that was something that I was very quick to connect with my girlfriend was same mindset. We're thinking about the same things. We want the same things in life. And once you get
Same race at the same pace.
once you get that base level down, everything else is just worrying about pure connection. Does it work? Are you guys matching each other's energies? Do you like similar enough things? Like
Yeah.
that
Oh,
stuff
hold
builds
on,
over
hold
time.
on, hold on. Wait. Can we talk about the matching of the energy for a second? That is the ultimate guide to connecting, is matching each other's energy. You know what I'm saying? If you're and it's gonna look, it's hard to explain because it's gonna look different in each relationship. But in my relationship with my girlfriend, we do a very good job, at least to the best of our ability, when we're in good mental states, to make sure to celebrate each other's energy. Act wacky, like just do the things that make you laugh. Like there's not enough of that throughout the day to not set aside some time to connect through that way and matching each other's energy on every level. That's a big portion. So if you can match the energy and you guys are genuinely interested in each other's future, I think that's grounds for a relationship. And I think a lot of people in our generation is, what, let's hook up and go out to eat for however long until we get attached to the point where we're confident enough to be like, okay, like let's carry this on.
Yeah, 100%. I feel this. I just think of like my own relationship, and there's like wacky little things that we do that if someone heard us,
you smile.
if like people like we're always like, if people heard us, they'd be like, "Yo, we're fucking weird." But it's like, but like you need that stuff in the relationship to actually make it go, because you need to have the laughs. You need to like form that thing that is your thing and that other people don't get, but you guys get. And that is definitely missing in this generation. Is everyone just quick to cut people off for the littlest things? Is like people just got to really understand, like everyone's got their shit, man. Like everyone's got their traumas, and like you obviously don't overlook everything, but like you got to be on some level empathetic for what people go through. And I'm not saying feel sorry for every single person you come across. I'm not saying that, but you got to try to connect, man. Like people just don't want to connect, and like that is the point of the podcast, was to connect to people. And I've done this. This is episode 160. I've done this 160 times, whether it's just connecting with myself and my audience or a guest in the audience. And what this has always taught me is that everyone has a story and everyone fucking matters. And you got to actually reach out to the people to have the talk. Like, I wonder how many people saw your post and just liked it and moved on. I liked it, was like, yo, let's talk about this shit.
I was thinking about that too, because, it's crazy for the amount of people that like the post. Okay, so like let's say I feel that a lot of people are liking because they want to show support where support has already been shown, because that's supposedly going to be like the right thing to do. They see their friends liking my post, they just toss a like in there too. Is it a measure of, some people, they do genuinely care. They show a like, or, they show some support. Oh my God, that's awesome. But some people really are just liking because it's just part of the whole scroll, tap, tap, scroll. Oh, that's a cool picture. Oh, you get a few sentences in. Oh, that's cool, tap, tap. The whole instant gratification thing we kind of mentioned earlier.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think enough people do the whole connecting aspect is what we've been talking about. And I do want to start tying the bow on the conversation because I know you got a busy schedule, obviously, with the young one. So I want to start tying things up and closing the books on this great conversation between a lot of the stuff we talked about, between stepping up, creating more meaning in your life, stepping into this role of fatherhood. There's just so many great valuable lessons that you can grab for this conversation. And I'm glad that we were able to kind of sit down and have this conversation. Especially, I appreciate your time, given the fact of how busy your life is now, dealing with a young one, to kind of set aside some time. And I tried my best to give you as much time to come over here and connect. So I definitely tried to squeeze stuff for you. And this has been a great conversation, but I want to give you kind of the last word, and you could take as long as you want. You could talk about whatever you want. I want to give you the last word on this conversation, and then I'll start wrapping up for us.
I guess I already kind of explained a lot.
You could build off stuff too if you want, or revisit.
Right. So, I'll just say a couple of sentences to kind of wrap up here. I think that it's important at a young age to understand that when you're going to get into your 20s, there's going to be a massive difficulty increase on every level. You know what I'm saying? When you start getting into I have to fend for myself in my scenario, you need to be about that and understand that everybody in your circle that are there for support, they matter. And not to say that the people outside or your acquaintances don't matter, but there needs to be a filter there. You need to get your ducks in a row in life. You got to understand who's there for supporting you, understand who's good for you and who's not, because that stuff really matters. That stuff's damn near generational. If let's say you fall in love, or quote unquote, you fall into lust for the wrong person, or vice versa, you have a bad relationship. Let's say you guys end up having a child. Well, then the bloodline is going to go towards that direction, and that writes your family's history. That's something that's overlooked. If you're not dating for the long term, you're dating to break up. So think of it that way. And I would just say that energy and connection are absolutely essential in succeeding in relationships and being able to celebrate a life with a partner full of blessings, being able to look at the bright side of things and being able to make things work. You need that communication, that connection, and that energy needs to be there.
Perfect. And I would agree that the connection and the energy flows not only in the romantic relationships, but every relationship that you have.
Right.
Whether it's your family, your friends, like you mentioned, or whether it's your job, whether it's just being out in nature or having your pet, your pet, feeling connected to your pet. A lot of people feel connected to their pet. Whatever is the connection, focus on the relationship, nourish those relationships, because those relationships are so fucking valuable. But Devin, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast again. And I look forward to your future success, and hopefully we'll have another conversation and there'll be a lot of growth that's happened since this.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Big time.
Perfect. So for you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. Check it out, the carrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. And if you like to watch our podcast, go on YouTube, search the Carroll Connection. It should pop up right for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at the Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up. So, till next time, guys. Peace.